Hi, it's Adam from Reality Manifestation, and within this video, I'm going to be going through how to change your self-image and stop caring what other people think. We'll always care to what other people think to some degree because we're social creatures and we evolved, and it's how our species survived by working as a group, as a tribe, and reliant on working together. But what you can do with an empowering self-image is have it so what you do care about what other people think has an empowering impact on your life rather than limiting you or causing you to self-sabotage or constantly seeking validation from others. So you can still feel good enough and loved within yourself despite what others may say around you, or also having to run every idea through other people first because you don't trust your own self-judgment. So all of this can be changed in an empowering way if this is something you are struggling with, by creating an empowering identity that creates self-love, confidence and respect, or whatever you may be seeking externally from within. Now, to paraphrase a quote by Tony Robbins, it goes along the lines of, "The strongest force within the human psyche is one's need for their words and their actions to stay consistent with their self-identity." So this basically means the strongest force that dictates our behavior will be based on staying consistent with our self-identity. How we define ourselves and our self-identity, basically how we view ourselves, is just a set of beliefs, but it's just a category of beliefs that's based on our own perception of our own identity. So if you have a self-belief, for example, of "I'm just unconfident, I'm too much of a loser, I'm not cool," with a capital K, you'll subconsciously feel states, take actions, say words and do certain behaviors that stays consistent with how you view yourself. We have 3 different levels of a belief, which I've already done a video on, which I'll leave in the description box down below. But to briefly mention them now, as it's important to understand this, the first level of a belief, which is a level 1 level, is a logical understanding. You have a logical, intellectual understanding that something means something in particular. So for example, a smoker understands and believes that smoking is bad for them. Then a deeper level 2 belief is an emotional level. So now the smoker feels emotionally that smoking is bad for them, and they feel it on an emotional level. And then the strongest, deepest level of a belief is a level 3 identity level belief. So this is when someone's identity is aligned with the belief. So for example, with the smoker, they are now a non-smoker. So they don't just think logically or feel emotionally they should stop smoking, but their very identity is someone who doesn't even consider smoking. So they're not having any cravings, they're not fighting it, as it's deeply and congruently aligned with their self-image. The reason why this is important to understand when it comes to changing your self-image is that unless you get it on a deep level 3 identity level, it's not going to be something that you're congruently aligned with. You may make some shifts, you may feel differently about yourself, but in the back of your mind, if you still have an identity that's limiting you, or needs the approval and seeks the validation of others, it's something you'll still chase now and again, even if it isn't something as frequently as you used to do. And all a belief is a feeling of certainty whether something is true or that it isn't. And one single belief that you have of how you view yourself, basically a belief in your identity, could be limiting you in an aspect of your entire life. So for example, if you believe that you're not good enough unless you do X or Y, and that you're incapable of achieving that criteria, which is basically the rules you may have in order to feel good enough, then you'll never achieve that criteria. If you're unfamiliar with what I mean by your rules, I've also already done a video on this, which I highly recommend if you're unfamiliar with, as without understanding your rules, you're not going to know why you will or won't feel a particular sensation about an area of your life. So I'm also going to leave a video to this down below. A limiting belief I used to have in terms of caring what other people think is that I used to think that I'm just not cool, or I'm just not likable, I'm just strange. And a lot of my behaviours through many years, especially in my early years of my life, actually carried out this behaviour, which was completely on a subconscious level. I was completely unaware of the reasons why. And one of the experiences that caused this, which I can actually recall and remember after some introspection, is around the time when I was around 6 years old. On the school playground, for whatever reason, some of the quote-unquote cool kids was rejecting me, and the other kids, as kids do, were following them, doing the same. And in order for me to be accepted into the gang, I had to grab some nettles and squeeze them as hard as I can. And an association I made as a young child, because I didn't know any better, was that in order for me to feel accepted and good enough, I had to do something that impressed people. And this is a belief that carried out through a lot of my adult life as well. Because our brains are always scanning what something means, whether it will lead to pleasure or lead to pain. And whenever we have a strong emotional experience, our brains will link up to that experience, potentially meaning the emotion we felt at that time, even if it isn't actually true. And this is how a lot of illogical beliefs are formed within the first place. So as a young child, as obviously I didn't know any better, I associated having to do something to impress people in order to be accepted, in order to feel loved. So a single experience similar to the example I just shared about myself could have caused you to create a level 3 identity belief that you may still be carrying on throughout your adult life. So for those of you who are aware of your rules for what has to happen in order for you to feel good enough, or to feel good enough to be loved, and if you're unfamiliar, again I highly recommend you watch the video I've already done on this. Once you become aware of that criteria and you've redesigned your rules, you now want to start designing a new identity where you don't just have this as a way of feeling good enough or knowing you're good enough, but within your identity. So for example, let's say you have a set of rules as, I know that I'm good enough and worthy of love and self-love if I do a good deed, or that I'm a good person. You'd create your identity to someone who is a good person that does good deeds. So automatically how you view yourself and the actions and behaviors that you take out will be inconsistent with the rules and criteria that you have for feeling good enough within yourself. And once you have this self-love from within, you'll automatically no longer be seeking the approval and validation of others, rather than just trying to convince yourself and tell yourself that you're good enough, without understanding what's actually going off within your subconscious mind. So in order to start redesigning your identity, you want to start to write it down and really reflect on yourself. So I've also created a video on this process as well, which I know I'm referencing many other videos, but there's many aspects to creating this change on an identity level, and it would be an extremely long video to go through it all within a single one. So I'm going to post a link to this video down below as well. And you basically want to ask yourself a series of questions, as this is one of the best ways to take something that's outside of your conscious awareness, that's just on a subconscious level, to bring it to the surface of your conscious mind. Just to give you an example now, ask yourself questions such as, who am I? Who am I not? Once you've gotten this clearly written down and you start to look for references and reasons why you can know this is true and start to embody this new identity, eventually it will start to become a belief, and eventually it will become your identity, as that's all a belief is a series of feelings of feeling certain about something, meaning whether that it's true or not. And the same can be done with your identity, as again, your identity is just a series of beliefs of how you view yourself. I hope you found this video useful. If you have, if you could like it, and if you haven't already, if you can subscribe. Also share this with anyone who you'd think would benefit from the content within this video. And also comment down below if you have any questions, if any of the steps weren't quite clear, or let us know an aspect of your identity that you've changed or going to change. I hope you found this video useful, and I shall see you soon.